Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empowerment Exchange. As you join, please say hello in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. Tonight, we're talking about a powerful word, legacy. What will you leave behind? When we hear legacy, we often think about money, property, accomplishment, or something else that someone leaves behind for us. So tonight, but your legacy is bigger than that. So tonight, we're going to think about what are you building today in preparation for tomorrow. Your legacy is being built right now. You sometimes think legacy is something we leave at the end of our lives, but the truth is, you're creating your legacy right now. It is in how you treat people, how you respond to challenges, how you lead, how you love, how you serve, and how you show up when no one is watching. People may forget your title, your possessions, or your accomplishments, but they'll remember how you made them feel. What do you think about that, Bree?
That is so true. That's why people tend to think that when they have leave a legacy, it's money or something that a building. I I I I truly believe that legacy is something that you leave for people to follow. Not just money or what I've built, but it just has to do with how you made what impact in the world or what impact in the family did you leave other than a monetary or a structure.
Exactly. Some people think like, well, what's the legacy? Well, what am I going to leave? How much money am I going to leave for them to have, or what building, or how many cars, or the house, and things like that. But it's a lot deeper than that. So, what are you going to pass down to future generations? And when I say future generations, I'm not necessarily just talking about people in your family. You can leave stuff down to other people, and I'm not necessarily talking about possessions. Legacy isn't only about what you leave financially, just like Bree just stated. We're all passing something down. Maybe it's faith, strength, wisdom, courage, compassion, or discipline. But sometimes we also pass down that whatever things that need to stop, such as fear, bitterness, unhealed pain, negative thinking, generational patterns. Sometimes the greatest legacy decision you can make is this stops with me. How does that impact you, Bree?
Yes, I love what you said, Pat. Just thinking about legacy, and was speaking about patterns early or earlier today. And sometimes we can leave legacy of unwellness, like mental health, right? And so I love what you said. That's why in my walk, I truly try to, be that example that I want my children and my grandchildren to see, because I don't want, my legacy to be, yeah, my grandmama, my mom suffered from PTSD, or she suffered from mental health, social anxiety, or certain things like that, and they pull away because, oh, this runs in our family. No, no, it doesn't. We have the
Kind
power.
of gives them an excuse. People use that. I feel
Yes,
that sometimes people use that as an excuse as to why they don't do certain things or why they can't accomplish certain things. Well, I can't because my grandma had this and she brought it down to me. No, she didn't. That's an excuse. It's like you said, we have to break those chains literally in
yeah,
our families.
we, we must. I want to leave. Whatever trauma I suffered from does not have to be your story. What is your legacy? Even if you didn't come from a legacy building family, it's not too late. Just because you don't have a legacy to build off don't mean that you don't create one for your own family. So what legacy can you build today in your life with your family? Is it how you serve, like you said, or how you love. My mother didn't love me. I don't mean I'm not going to love my children, so
Exactly.
I want to leave a legacy of love and how to serve, so yes, Pat, this is
Yes, and that's definitely a wonderful legacy to leave for sure.
yes, a
Um,
legacy of love.
exactly. You can honor where you came from without repeating everything that came before you. And that goes on something that you just said, Bree. You know, you can keep the lessons, you can keep all the wisdom that you learned, but you don't have to keep the wounds. Sometimes legacy means creating a new path for the people coming behind you.
That's
And we
right.
definitely want to let go of those wounds and keep the wisdom for sure. That's like a gem right there. And a lot of people need to learn how to do that. You do not need to be perfect. A lot of people always say, well, I'll start when I'm ready to do this, or I have to get this before I can start, or I have to do that before I can start. Wanting the picture for everything to be picture perfect. But everything is not going to be perfect. You just have to do. Somebody may be thinking, I've made too many mistakes to leave a meaningful legacy, but you don't need a perfect story. Your lessons can become someone else's roadmap. Your mistakes can become someone's wisdom. Your pain can create compassion. Your setbacks can teach someone how to get back. And sometimes the greatest thing you can tell someone is, I went through it too, and here's what I learned. That's legacy. Do not waste the lessons your life taught you. Share them, teach them, and use them to help someone else. What, Bree?
So I like that. I love that, Pat, because your mistakes, why so many of us wait. Sometimes some of us we don't wait. Sometimes we just put that stigmatism on ourselves. Well, because I didn't have it, I'm not able to give it to mine. No, that is not the narrative that we should be trying to create. And first, what I want to say to our audiences is welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming on in the room. Drop your comments in the comment section and let's have a conversation about the things that we're talking about. Because in this day and time, we are going through a rough time right now, America. Hello, somebody. Hello, right? So we need to have these conversations to help build each other so we can break these cycles and build these legacies, right? We don't want anyone to sit here in this room, and knowledge is power. We are dropping these nuggets for you to pick them up and make a change in your life, right? So we're talking about legacy, right? This week, actually, we're talking about legacy. If you have not saw our show that just came out yesterday at 7 p.m. Legacy, the Blackman's Legacy, Family Legacy. This is the reason why we're talking about legacy this week, right? So watch the show, tune into the show if you haven't already. If you missed it, you'll catch it again on YouTube at 12 p.m. Is it 12? Yeah, 12 p.m. on Thursday on YouTube. But listen, legacy. Legacy can be created regardless if it was your mistakes are building blocks, right? That's the roadmap to building your own legacy. You can teach somebody in your home or in your in your family or outside to say, "Hey, I made this mistake. I've been here. I've done that. This is kind of the way that you want to deter from going because you may have a few, or if you go down there, make something, add to that person may be able to add to some of the things that you fell short on. Not to say it may not work for them, but hey, build something on top of the roadmap that I've already laid out for you. The thing about it is, try. Don't just give up, or just don't look at your life like this didn't happen for me, so I don't have a legacy to give to anyone else. We have to break that cycle of that way of thinking and get into the mentality of, I want to leave something better for my children or my family than what was left for me. And what is that? Think about that. What can you leave your family or your loved ones something better than what you may have been given.
Right. And that doesn't mean that what you were given was not good. You could have had a wonderful legacy left for you, but your life has taught you different things. You've been impacted by different things because your life is different from your parents or your grandparents, or all the people that have poured into you are different people. You've met different challenges and you've learned things. You've become wiser, prayerfully and hopefully. You kept those nuggets that taught you to grow, that helped you to move forward. And those lessons are important to teach other people, because we can teach those behind us, look, don't make this mistake. Or even if it wasn't a mistake, look, this is how I made it through. Right. And that helps everybody. And if we do that, instead of being so ready to say, oh, well, this happened to me, because it seems like so many people are, ready to tell you what bad happened in their life. Well, this happened, I lost my job, or, I walked down the steps today, girl, and I broke my ankle. I'm not saying that that's a small thing. Neither one of those things are small things. However, those are things that happen to us. They're not a part of us. Your legacy is a part of you, right? That was just a bleep in time, just a snapshot. You're going to overcome it. And the legacy part is how you overcame. It's not how you got into the situation, and it's not how the situation hurt you. How did you overcome that? How did you overcome chronic pain? How did you overcome mental illness? How did you overcome, having a chronic disease or domestic violence? All those things on how you overcame are important things to pass along to other people. Impact over impressions. We live in a world focused on numbers, followers, likes, views, titles, recognition. But legacy asks different questions. Not how many people you know, but how many people are better because I was here. One conversation can change somebody's direction. One encouraging word can keep somebody going. One opportunity can change a family's future. One mentor can change somebody's life. Never underestimate the impact you have on another person. And in saying that, there are a couple of questions that I would like for me and Bree to kind of talk about and kind of give as food for thought for the audience. And one of those questions are, how do I want people to remember me? Not from what you owned. That's not you. What you wear is not you, but were you loving? Were you encouraging? Were you a good mother? Were you faithful? Were you generous? Were you dependable? Did people feel better because you were in their lives? Bree?
So this is what I would like I like to give an example, right? As all our followers know, I am the author of The Big Take Bet. That is the legacy that I am leaving for the world, right? I want to be that example to say, wow, I remember the things that Bree went through. I read about the things that she went through because I'm very transparent in my walk. Okay. In my walk with God, in my walk of life, I'm very transparent. So I want people, the legacy that I'm leaving is courage and strength, faith, to say, if I could know one person, and there's so much division in this world, there's so much division in this world. And what I'm trying to also get people to see, hi, Leonard. Hello. How are you, my friend? So what I want to say is that when you look, the legacy that I'm leaving, I want somebody to say, wow, I remember her. Especially if you were a part of my military career, you say, I remember her. Like, can you imagine, Pat? Can you imagine if we just cut ourselves off at one point and say, I quit. I give up.
Right. I'm quit. What are you going to leave? You're leaving a legacy of giving up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
you're giving that legacy of looking at yourself like a failure. When my children look at me, when my grandchildren look at me, I want them to say, I am who I say I am, using the power of words to empower themselves into walking in to who God created them to be. You know, when
I am who He says I am.
I am not who, you know what
I'm not what people say I am. I'm who He says I am, and I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
That's right. That is so right. And you know, I will say this too, that a legacy that I will say that my grandmother instilled in me was faith. That is what she left me, faith. And that is the same. I take again, I wasn't raised in a perfect realm. But what I will do is take the little that I did learn and what I shouldn't have learned, and I build on that, and I create a better legacy for my children. Right?
Exactly. You just said yourself, you're an example. You were not raised in a perfect realm. None of us were.
None of us were.
There's no such thing as a perfect world or a perfect life. It doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. But it's not about perfection, because that's an impossible feat. You'll never be perfect. But what can you leave? What can you learn? How can you better yourself? How can you better your surroundings, the people that are around you? Because if every time you walk out of a room, people saying, "Ooh, Bree, I'm so glad she gone. I'm so glad he's gone." That's not a legacy you want to leave, mm-hmm. You know, because people are not going to remember your car, the clothes you wore, the house you lived in, the shoes you had on. They don't care if they are red bottoms or blue bottoms. They do not know. If you got on Jimmy Choo's or anything, they have no idea. They're not going to say, "Ooh, she had on Jimmy Choo's every day."
Let's look at the entertainment realm, shall we, for a minute? Maybe even the sports realm. The sports realm, Michael Jordan, all that. Michael Jordan, what is his legacy outside of just basketball, right?
He gave back to his community.
He gave back to his community. He Shaquille O'Neal, you know,
he imparted stuff into other players as well. Yeah,
other players. But this is the thing. I really applaud Shaquille O'Neal, because I seen an interview where he said that his children, right? He's just not going to hand them, and I'm paraphrasing, right? He's not just.
Yeah, he said that they don't. He said his kids don't have any money. He has money. They don't have nothing.
So he's leaving a legacy that I had to work hard for it. You're going to work hard for it, right?
And they all must get a master's degree.
Yes, before they get anything. That's my question. Just because, you know, and I wish that we didn't minimize the small people. Me and you, Pat, we're veterans. We're somebody. We served our
somebody, even if I was Joe Smo on the street without being a veteran. You know, I don't need a title. We're all, like you said, we're all somebody.
Yeah, this is just looking at it because our kids today, right? The internet, you know, social media is so high. And unless you're a big entertainer or whatever, you know, we have our children who are looking at those people and they're somebody because they're on TV or because they're in, you know, the GOAT.
The money, they're in the cars, they're in the Bugattis, you know, they're in the Rolls Royces, they're in the fast sports cars. And they see the limelight, but you see what the internet is what people want you to see, not reality.
And that is exactly what I wanted to say. You know, sometimes you know, we have to look behind the glitz and the glam to see that if you do a little bit more research and you get to learn that person and just see them for their face value, that man, these men, women are creating legacies behind them just being. Now, y'all know, if y'all didn't know, right? If y'all didn't know, okay? I am all about transparency. I love Cardi B, y'all. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Don't stop judging me, okay? I love Cardi B, not because and I don't look at the fact that she's out here half naked and she's talking about blah blah blah, but I look from where she came from. I look at her past and where she is now. You know, for whatever reasons Cardi had to do some of the things that she was doing, dancing or whatever, her children won't. Her children will not have to experience what she experienced. Why? Because she created a legacy, and she gave them some building blocks on how to be better, how to do better, how to make more. I look at the Carters, okay? Beyonce and Jay-Z. Come on now. Come on, somebody. I feel like I've been preaching lately. But I just get passionate about our communities, right? Our communities building better from what they didn't have, or what you did have. Because I'm not going to say that everybody was, born into trauma. Maybe you had a 2-parent household that was good. You can still build from that. You can still build better. I have not seen one person in this entire world to say I had everything. Everything was perfect. Everything was hard. Y'all find me that person, child. Y'all let me know.
Look, we need to put them on the show if they find them.
Yeah, find it. So share it. But yes, ma'am.
So we have another question for you, and I want you to think about this too, Bree. What am I teaching by the way I live? People are watching how you handle life. How do you respond to disappointment? How do you treat people? How do you recover when things go wrong? How do you keep going? Sometimes your greatest lesson isn't something you say, it's something you have demonstrated.
I will say this. When I talked to I was a single parent for a long time after I got out of my abusive marriage. And what I showed my children was resilience. That's what I showed them. We have to recognize that our children or society may be looking at us to see how we do things. Man, my children never knew the struggle of not having food. They were always fed. Am I sitting up there and, stomach growling or whatever? Well, what was that? Oh, it was the dog. It was a dog outside barking or something. Ooh, what was that? But they full and hungry. So it's the thing of what do we show our children when we are going through something. And I try to talk, because suicide, but again, mental health is real. And that's just not something that I wanted to leave my children, was me following through with suicide. Then they grow up with mental health issues and say, hey, maybe mom was right. We don't need to be here. That's not what I want to show them. And so I that's another good question, Pat, is what do you want? What legacy do you want to leave? What do you want to show your children? It's not about how hard the struggle is, it's how you look after you come out of that struggle.
Yeah, and how you make it through that struggle. That's important. Those lessons that we learn by going through it, we're supposed to show our kids. So, okay, when they see that same type of struggle, they'll be like, oh, okay, mom talked to me about this. Dad, I watched dad go through this, and these are the steps that they took. And then they'll add on their own individual steps, other things that may have helped them as well. And that's a whole nother legacy for them to leave for their kids,
That's true. And even in leadership, I speak about leadership. As a female in the military, I never wanted to look weak in front of male soldiers, because men tend to be what? The protectors, the providers, right? The protectors.
Exactly.
No, I got this. I could do it, to show my other females soldiers that I had to be that leading example. Don't come in here with, oh, I'm cramping. I can't. It's like, what? Like, no, get that mentality that you need as a female in the military when you out there in no man's land in another country somewhere and bullets is flying over your head. I'm not worried about these cramps today. I think I'm going to worry, and it's about carrying your own weight. So even as a leader, people are looking at you. What example, what legacy are you leaving? I would tell you that if you were one of my soldiers, the legacy that I believe that I left with my soldiers is that resiliency, that compassion for a human being, to lead by example and treat people with respect. That's the legacy. I wanted to bring that up about leadership too as well.
That is definitely, and I will add to that. I believe the resiliency, but also a big one for me is integrity. Yeah. I am big on integrity. Mm-hmm. If I found that your integrity is breached, yeah, I'm done.
You won't. I can't follow somebody that integrity.
Yeah, I'm done.
If you're a liar, then if you're a parent and you're a liar, the kids gonna be liars.
Right.
If if it's just, yes, it's so, yes, girl, I could keep going on about that, but I believe that you go ahead.
So our third question that we're gonna talk about is, what needs to start with me? That's a question we all need to ask ourselves. What needs to start with me? Maybe it's building financial stability, starting a business, writing a book, strengthening your faith, breaking a generational pattern, mentoring someone, going back to school, creating healthier relationships, telling your story like Bree is telling hers, because somebody has to be first. So why not you?
Gotta put yourself first, because if you don't, nobody else will. You have to.
And if everybody holds their story or holds what they have to themselves, nobody else learns, nobody benefits. You die with all that knowledge. You die with all those ideas in your head. Graveyard, there are so many amazing ideas in the graveyards right now because nobody ever birthed them. Nobody ever believed enough in themselves to talk about it, to at least try to attempt to do it. So the graveyard is full of ideas and businesses as well as people. So don't leave this world with your ideas and things locked in you. Share them. Be that person that shares that wisdom, that tries. Okay, you try, it didn't fail that way. Okay, now let's adapt that situation. It's not a failure, it's a learning experience. First of all, I'm going to correct myself. It's not a failure, it's a learning experience. You take what you've learned from that time when you tried, you adapt it and you adjust. You see where those points were that you need to make correction. You correct it and you try it again. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts as a veteran went all over the place as you were talking. But I will say that where my thoughts were is you have to be your own piece before you're left in pieces. That was my thought. And the pieces, the things that may have broken you, pick up those pieces. Make ways that nobody, if someone hasn't walked in your shoes, they're not going to understand your pain. Okay? We need to be building. The reason why we have went through some certain things is to build up those behind us. The people want to silence slavery. No, people want to silence the pain and the hurt that we've been through. And I think it should be heard so we don't repeat certain things. Okay, we become stronger with the more knowledge that we learn, you become stronger. And that's how it is with your identity in your life. I've realized that certain things and ways I was raised, maybe because my parents or a parent wasn't raised in a certain way, so they don't know how to give me something that they didn't learn how to give, or they didn't get themselves. So how do I build a greater legacy? What legacy can I build? What cycle can I break? Breaking cycles, building legacy.
Building legacies. Exactly.
And that is
So
what Empowerment Exchange is about. We are exchanging. And see, Pat, I'm glad that you mentioned this, because we're exchanging empowerment right now. That's why, like you said, so many people then took things to the grave. And I know I'm over time, Pat. I know I'm over time. But I love when you said people have taken things to the grave and died because they didn't share it they kept all that they went through or been through to themselves. So the pattern or the cycle wasn't able to be broken because they just pick it right back up, and you stay in that struggle.
Or people didn't learn. People didn't learn something. Or you could have been telling your story, and there's somebody out there that's going through the same thing or has gone through the same thing, and they're feeling defeated by whatever it is. It could be the PTSD. I've had several medical incidents, that I've gone through. And for a while, to be honest with you, I didn't want to talk about it. It was not because I was ashamed of it or because I felt negative about it. I just didn't feel, I was like, who wants to hear it? That's just was my mentality. It wasn't anything negative about it. But I was actually talking to Barbara the other day, and she said, Pat, you don't know it, but you have a powerful story. She said, the stuff that you've been through, and you don't look anything like all the things that you've been through. You need to release that so other people, other veterans can hear the things that you've gone through, because there are plenty of people that can see, okay, she went through that, and look.
There's a way out.
Exactly.
There is a way out. And that's why
some people, unless they see somebody who's gotten out and who's been through that and is still pushing forward, they think that there's no way out.
Yeah.
They believe the pain will last always. It doesn't. The pain seems to last always because that's what you allow to be your focal point. Change your point of focus, and you'll change your life.
Good stuff, Pat. Good stuff.
So as we close, we want to let you know that your legacy is not finished. Maybe you feel like you've wasted time. Maybe you wish you had made different choices. Maybe you missed opportunities. But if you're still here, your legacy is still being written. You can start today. Call someone, encourage someone, forgive someone, apologize, share what you've learned, start the project, write the book, mentor somebody, plainly open the door. You don't have to change the entire world. Start with the world around you. One person at a time, one conversation at a time, one decision at a time, one act of love at a time. That's how legacy begins. I would like to thank you for joining us on the show today. I'm getting chalked up. I'm sorry.
Look,
thank you.
I hear you, girl. Look,
thank you for joining us.
One thing. Thank y'all for joining us. But she said, open the door. I say, kick it in. Kick it in. Kick
exactly.
It in. Close it out. Kick in the door. It's time for softness to stop. Kick it
to stop.
Down.
Exactly. So thank you for joining the Empowerment Exchange today. I'm Pat Smith, the co-host, and
I'm Dr. Bree Charles, the host. And thank you guys for joining us. Stay tuned, because Thursday we're going to continue to talk about legacy.
Exactly. And take the time to do the 3 questions and post them in the comments for us, and any questions that you may have, and post what you're going to leave as your legacy, or what you want to be your legacy in the comments as well. And we'll see you here back on the Empowerment Exchange Thursday at 5:30. See you then, everyone.
Bye-bye.